So once again, welcome, and to everyone out on Teams, I hope you guys are able to hear me. If for some reason you're not, please make a comment in the chat so that we know. But welcome. Thank you guys for being here this morning. Again, my name is Gerard Bowens. I'm the Business Outreach Coordinator here for the City of Frederick. I work to help manage our MWBE and SBR programs for the city. Those are our Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise and Small Business Reserve Program. I'm not going to go too much into detail on those programs now. Julie's going to touch on those here briefly in just a minute, and then also there's a full outline in our Doing Business with the City resource guide. So if you were able to come to our Doing Business 101, you got a full rundown of these programs, and everything is covered here in the resource guide for you. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that today. Today is our How to Write a Winning Proposal RFP workshop. And since I do not really know how to write a winning proposal, I have brought in a special consultant who's here with us today who's going to guide you through that. And before I introduce her, I do want to acknowledge Ms. Raven Garver from our purchasing department. Because we're dealing with proposals and things that are directly going to deal with procurement and purchasing, we've invited her to come here today in case we have any deeper procurement or purchasing related questions that she can help us navigate. So the idea today is to learn skills that will help take us through and help make us a little bit more competitive when it comes to submitting those proposals. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our consultant today, Ms. Julie Yoder, who is the lead trainer with English with Purpose. Take it away.
All right, everybody. For those of you joining us on Teams, if you've just joined us, this session will be recorded, so just let us know. You can send a message in the chat if for any reason anybody needs to be blurred out in the recording later. My name's Julie. I am an English as a second language teacher by trade, but my job here was to break down this very complex process for anybody who might be new to government contracting, whether or not English is your first language, right? I had to learn it myself. It's very navigable, and we're going to show you today how to get through it and also how to strengthen your proposal. Perhaps you're better at construction than you are at writing. That's okay. You don't need to be a novelist to get through this process. And so there's a few logistics first. We will be taking questions in chunks as we go. And for those of you on Teams, if you have questions, please feel free to put that in the chat, and Gerard will relay those to me. It's a lot of information, but we've broken it down into about 3 sections. So we're going to do a quick review of how to get registered with the city and how to get set up as a vendor and self-certified, and then we're going to go into how do you actually find city government projects in the system, how do you interpret them, how do you read them, and what do you need to do to respond properly and draft a winning proposal, hopefully winning proposal, can't make any promises. And then in the third part, in the last half hour, we're going to be doing some writing together. So for those of you in the room, I will be asking you to maybe get up and move to a table, and we're going to be writing by hand, which is why you have this packet. And for those of you on Teams, this was emailed to you, these 2 pieces. Just please check your inbox if you haven't seen them yet. We'll be using this in the third part of the workshop, and we'll be getting away from the slides, and I'll be asking you to reference pieces of the packet. So the goal here today is hopefully you will leave with a rough draft of what could be the introduction to your first proposal. And we're going to ask you to think about what makes your company special, what's your superpower, why are you the best person for the job, and how would you explain that to the procurement team to show that you're trustworthy, that you can get the job done, that you can do it within budget, that you understand the project, and that you can deliver on time. All right, why are we here? I like to start with a philosophical question. Why are we here? I'm personally passionate about this process for personal reasons. A competitive bid process is essential for quality control in government projects. My first career was as a K-12 public school teacher. I worked in a school that was undergoing renovations. We were working in a construction zone for 6 years. Every company affiliated with that construction project filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy while creating a really dangerous environment with the air quality, abandoning the project, and the city had already spent all the money to renovate this school, and we got a broken, dangerous school with no money left to fix it. So they were band-aiding things. I got very, very sick. Many of my colleagues got very sick. Many of the kids got sick. I ended up spending almost a decade recuperating my immune system, trying to get answers about this mystery illness that I had, and having to start over in my early 30s, having lost everything from working in an environment like that. And to this day, we don't know what happened. Maybe somebody on the school board gave the construction contract to a buddy. Maybe the city didn't have a proper procurement process. I don't know, but it was a disaster. So we don't want that, right? We don't want that for anybody. We don't want that for public facilities. We don't want that when taxpayer money is involved. And I probably don't need to name names, but it was Alexandria City, Virginia. So and to this day, that school still has black mold climbing up the wall. So that's how badly, So for me, it's an opportunity for small businesses in the community, but we also want the job done right. And that's the procurement team's job, is to find the best company to do it right, to do it within budget, and to not, and for the public good and for the community. So we're also going to learn how to navigate the process with the City of Frederick. We have a portal for that. It's not exactly intuitive, but we've broken it down for you. And in the end, we're going to practice writing a competitive proposal. That's where this packet comes in. And this is designed for you to be able to take it home and spend more time with it. We're just going to use pieces of it today and do some exercises together, but this can be your resource for when you're ready to draft your first bid. I'm going to move to this because is that working? Oh. Hello, hello. All right. Hello. Maybe this is the answer. I like to walk around. If not, that's okay.
Yeah, when Lance comes back, we'll
Okay, no problem.
get you
All
going
right.
there. Yep.
Was anybody in the room at the 101 workshop? Yes, the one about how to get set up as a vendor. Fantastic. Okay. For anybody who was not able to make that one, we're going to do a very quick review. You have all this information, and we can make it available to you. We want to spend the majority of today on the writing, but a quick review of the first workshop. So as you may know, as you hopefully know, right, the City of Frederick wants its contract opportunities to be accessible to small, local, and minority businesses. Ooh, thank you.
Hello, hello. I like that better. Okay. And they do this in a number of ways. This is part of the outreach, okay? We have the Small Business Reserve Program, the Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise Program. Those are all those acronyms we went through in the 101 workshop, and this learning series. So in the 101, we covered business certifications, various business certifications, local, state, and regional. How to self-certify with the City of Frederick. We're going to go over that really quickly again. If you don't have any of the other certifications, that's okay. I don't know if I'm creating an echo or okay. How to register in IonWave as a vendor. That's your first step to actually see the opportunities that are available, and how to navigate the IonWave platform. Next slide, please. Why should you do this? Okay. Has anybody here in the room or on Teams done local government contracting before? Great, okay. No problem, that's why you're here. It is a tedious process, I'm not gonna lie, but it will bring growth for your company. And you may not win the bid for the first project that you try for, but a lot of people, because it does involve a lot of thinking, a lot of work, and it takes time and extreme attention to detail. Often, the first time you try, you're not gonna necessarily win that bid because you're new to it, okay? And then they don't try again. It's like, oh, I put all that effort into it. I didn't get a return. I didn't get the project. I'm not earning money. Why should I go through that again? But I think it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. It up-levels your business. Because as you go through this process, you're going to learn what you might be missing to get to that next growth phase. There are insurance requirements that maybe in your previous work you didn't really have to get certain types of business insurance. But in order to contract with local and city governments, you do need certain types of business insurance, and it's not a big deal, right? These are the things we put off as small business owners until an opportunity comes and we have to do it. So think about it as an opportunity to really think through everything, your gaps that you might have that are preventing you from up-leveling your business. And it doesn't mean you have to grow, depending upon what your business is. You don't have to suddenly hire a team. It depends on the project that you're bidding on and your area of expertise. But it's ultimately going to strengthen your business, get you really thinking about possibilities, and expanding your opportunities. And local governments want skilled companies who take pride in their work to fulfill these public construction projects in particular, but there's a lot more out there beyond construction. We're going to look at that in just a moment. And when this happens, everybody benefits. So we're going to help you get through it. It can be intimidating, but city government is a great place to start. You don't have to jump all the way to federal contracting. There are opportunities right here, and it's a fantastic starting place. Next slide, please. These are just some of the examples. When we think government contracts, we often think construction. There is definitely plenty of that, but there are all kinds of services where the city hires contractors. These are all taken from the past few years. I just went back through IonWave and looked at some of the closed bids. So just have a look at that for a moment. The main point here is to understand that no matter your small business, at some point, there may be an opportunity for you. And we're going to show you how to stay on top of the bids as they come open and kind of track what projects are coming down the pipeline to see if one matches your area of expertise. Is there anything on that list that's surprising for you? Okay, next slide, please. Oh, composting. So the city has a pilot program for households to have their compost, the kitchen scraps, picked up and processed. So if you don't have a yard or you don't have a system in your backyard. That one in IonWave had a lot of questions because it's a pilot program. And so we're going to get to that too, is the question and answer period when you are bidding. That's exciting. I don't know right now. Definitely, they definitely do hire for IT. I'm going to show you how to go back historically to see exactly what they were hiring for and who won the bid and what services they were providing, because that's an important part of the research. So your first step, as we went over in the 101, is to register as a vendor with the City of Frederick and IonWave, and then provide any small, minority, or disadvantaged business certifications you may already have. But it's okay if you haven't gone in that direction yet. It's a good idea over time, but you can start, if you do qualify as a small business, according to the SBA, the Small Business Administration Standards, then you fill out a form with the City of Frederick, and you sign saying, yes, I do qualify, I'm under this size, this many people, and you email that to the business diversity email, and we will show you that later, okay? So it's not that big of a deal, but the point here is that you can get started even if you don't have any of these official certifications yet. Okay, IonWave is the portal where you register as a vendor. We went over this in the 101, but that's okay. If you weren't here, there's an excellent tutorial with pictures in this guide. And so you're going to start with the supplier registration button. You're going to need some basic information about your company. And we're not going to go too deep into that today, but You can always contact the Business Diversity Office if you need help, but start here with the tutorial. You want to get yourself set up in IonWave because that's where you're going to be able to see the open bids and the open contracts. This is the form. It's actually, I mean, it's digital, but it's physical. It's not in IonWave. So you will want to fill this out. That's just the second part where you're kind of signing the affidavit that says, yes, I'm telling the truth. And then you email that to businessdiversity@cityoffrederickmd.gov. So that's happening outside the portal. Everything else that you do is happening inside the IonWave portal once you get registered as a vendor.
And just touching on that form, if I have not already sent it to you, email me and let me know, and I'll send it to you directly. Once you also register in IonWave, I'm automatically sending that to you. So I'm checking all the new IonWave registrations. And so if you just registered in IonWave, as soon as I see that registration come through, I'm sending you a follow-up with this form. It's a 2-part form. So like Julie said, that's the second part. That's our self-certification for small business. The first part is going to want a little bit of information about your company contact info, and then a little bit of information on which certifications you have and what those statuses are, right? And so, again, this is for small business only. That is just a letter saying that I swear that I've checked the Small Business Administration website and I meet or fall below those standards. So if you have any questions about that form, just email me and let me know.
Okay, once you are registered in IonWave as a vendor, then you're ready to explore open bids. You've got 2 ways you can do this. You can sign up for email notifications, or you can just go into the portal periodically to see what has been updated. Personally, I just go into the portal periodically. I don't want all the emails that may or may not be relevant. But it's, it's up to you. What's going to get your attention? What's going to remind you? Because you never know when projects are going to be added, and you never know what types of projects are going to be added. But as a business owner, I would suggest just kind of adding that into your business practices. Once a month or every 2 weeks, I'm going to log into IonWave and I'm going to see if there's any opportunities that I may want to bid on or something that comes up that fits my area of expertise. So we're not going to go into the portal today, but I just wanted to show you some of the key tabs. Like I said, it's totally functional, but not exactly intuitive. So, and again, that's in here. There's great photos in here to show you exactly where to go. So when you want to start looking to see what is out there, first you click on available bids. Now, right now, this is live as of yesterday. It's budget season, so don't be confused. There's not much in there, okay? It's coming, right? So right in the middle of the summer, because the fiscal year ends on June 30th, later in the summer, when everybody's in vacation mode, these opportunities are going to pop up. So you might want to put a reminder in your calendar whenever you get back from the beach to do a little planning ahead when we roll into fiscal year 2025 and see what's in that portal, okay? Right now, there's only one RFP there. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to clarify. RFP, for anybody who might not know, because we have a lot of jargon, is request for proposals. And in your Solicitation 101 packet, there is a glossary of all of these technical government terms. So if at any point it just gets to be too much, check your glossary, because a lot of the language is also not intuitive, and it often means something simple, like scope of work, how are you going to complete the project, all of those terms, okay? So the projects are listed under my invitations. So that, for me, was a little bit confusing, because I thought, wait a minute, I didn't sign up, I didn't ask for that, but that's where it's listed, okay? Thank you. When you click on a project, and there's only one in there right now, you're going to see this page. And then you want to go to the Attachments tab. And that's where you're going to find the uploaded PDFs of the request for proposals. It's a long document. So you'll click on attachments. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay. And then under attachments, you're going to see all the documentation associated with that project. In that tab, you want to look for something labeled solicitation document or RFP. And if you just want to read at first to see what is this project, is it good for my company, do I want to consider it, that's what we're going to show you how to do right now. You will want to download this. Most of these RFPs are 14 pages, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. I personally find, because it's so detailed, that it's just much easier to read it in one document. And I will, if it's something I'm serious about that I want to try for, I will print it, because it's easier for me to take a highlighter and go through the paper copy and highlight the things I need to think about, maybe the things I don't quite understand, the things I need to research. It's really easy to miss details. These are very detailed specifications. So, now that you're registered, credentialed, and you know how to find the RFPs, it's time to look at them and understand how to interpret them, because we can't write our proposal until we understand what it wants. All right, RFP process. It's a formal document, an RFP, used by organizations to solicit bids from potential suppliers or vendors for specific products, services, or projects. And the RFP itself outlines the project's requirements, objectives, and evaluation criteria, how your company is going to be evaluated, providing potential suppliers with the necessary information to submit a competitive proposal. It's designed to encourage a fair and transparent selection process. So remember that horrible story I told you about the not unfair and one bidder selection process for the city school system? This is why competition is good. We want to ensure that the organization receives the best possible solution to meet its needs while fostering healthy competition among vendors. So this, I think, is a good time for questions. Are there any questions from teams? Okay, moving on. So how do you bid on it? Oh, I forgot about this. Procurement team, I was told this was important. Okay, you will see sometimes two types of projects in IonWave. RFP is what we are going to prepare for today. Actually, can we go back one, just one? IFB stands for invitation for bid or invitation to bid, or you might see it as ITB in some governments. In this type of project, cost is the main factor. So you don't have to do as much, selling of your company. It's like, can you get this simpler project done within this budget? And I want to make that distinction because sometimes when people are competing for bids the first time, there's an assumption that if you can undercut your competitors on cost, that's going to make you more attractive to be selective. That's not necessarily true in an RFP. In an RFP, there are many factors under consideration. So when you are scanning through there, just make sure you understand the difference. Is this an IFB or is this an RFP? All right, we're going to go through the steps of how to prepare your proposal. Now that you hopefully understand how to find everything. Next slide, please. All right, this goes on and on and on, but don't worry. We're going to break it down for you, all right? I tried to break this down to what I would do if I were coming to this for the first time, okay? So when you see an RFP posted that you would like to bid on, read it carefully. And like I said, I think a best practice is to print it and read the paper copy. Read it very carefully. Take a highlighter. Highlight everything that you don't quite understand, everything that you might need to go back and double check. Can my company do that? Do I actually have that? Do I understand that term? If at any point you don't understand a term, you can cross-check it with the glossary in this packet. Yes. Yes. Yes, that's a great question. The insurance requirements will be explained in the RFP document, and you do need to have those secured in advance. That's correct, Raven, right? Yeah. So we're gonna give you some resources at the end, because with construction in particular, I know it has a lot to do with the bonding, and maybe if you haven't done government contracts, you haven't done those types of insurance bonds, but we have some resources available to help you get what you need.
A quick note on that. If you didn't notice on your way in, we are hosting our vendor resource fair. That's the last step in this series. 101 was how to do business with us. 102 is how to submit a winning proposal. 103 is access to all of those resources to help you succeed in your RFP. And so make sure you scan the code and register. At that resource fair, we are inviting several local insurance and bid bonding agents to come and talk to you a little bit more about that process and how to make sure that you can secure the right level of insurance and bid bonding ahead of time. All right, so make sure you sign up for that May 23rd.
Excellent. See, perfectly timed question. As you go through the RFP, identify anything that you know your company might be missing. So particularly the insurance. And, do you have staff members? Is it asking for staff members? Maybe you need to hire a team member to implement a certain part of the project. Again, like I said, this is gonna help you really up-level, especially if you've been a solopreneur and maybe you've been a little hesitant to bring in more people or a little scared of that next growth phase. I promise it's worth it. And personally, 2 years ago, I worked with the business coaches in Frederick County, and the very first thing they said was, get the proper insurance for your business because you're limiting yourself, And sure enough, the moment I did it, I was able to go for all kinds of different opportunities, and it's no big deal, right? You just call your insurance broker who you establish a relationship with, and you say, hey, I need a certificate of insurance for these parameters or for this amount, and then she or he just takes maybe 24 hours and sends it over, and then you've got that. You attach that proof of certificate insurance to your bid, and you're good to go. So once you take that step, it's not a big deal. Of course, it's another expense, but the earning potential that you gain on the other side more than makes up for it. All right. So you're going to want to identify your full team in advance. This is a potential gap, right? But you might have time to pull in somebody, but that does need to be stated up front in your proposal. So you can't say, oh, I have this business manager who doesn't have a name yet because we haven't hired him or her. So start thinking, who do I need to hire as a subcontractor? How do I find those subcontractors? And I'm gonna need those subcontractors in some cases to provide me with information about their background, maybe their resume. You're gonna need to be able to talk about them. You wanna show that you have put together the best team for this project. So then step 4, particularly with construction projects, there are pre-bid meetings and site visits. These are optional, but they are a very good idea. So you will want to stay connected in IonWave, and you will want to put in your calendar any pre-bid meetings or any site visits, because those are opportunities to gather as much information as possible before you submit your bid. And you may end up changing something in your proposal because you'll learn something along the way that wasn't necessarily clear in the RFP, right? We can't think of everything when we write these requests for proposals. So then you're gonna start writing up each section of your proposal, and we're gonna start that together in the last half of the workshop. There's a question and answer period. It takes place inside IonWave. So if you have any questions for the procurement team, any clarifications about the project, then you go into IonWave, into the questions section, and you type it in there, and then you wait for an answer. It's an excellent idea to be reading that all along the way, because other people are gonna ask questions that you didn't think about. And again, it's an opportunity to get as much information as possible about what this particular project needs. And Raven, how long is the question period typically? Okay. Okay. Okay, so 1.5 to 2 weeks of the question period. Again, I would put that in my calendar to make sure I remind myself to go back into Ion Wave and read about that. All right, step 7, if you get stuck. We're here to help, okay? You can contact this office of Equity and Inclusion at the Business Diversity email. And maybe you're having technical issues with Ion Wave, or you got lost, or you don't understand something. But anything that you get stuck on, reach out, please. All right, I'm gonna emphasize it again, because I can't emphasize it enough, step 8. So once the question and answer period closes, now you're kind of in go time, okay? The deadline for the proposals is coming up. This is your final time period to figure everything out, draft it as beautifully as possible. Do go back in and read the questions one more time and all of the answers before you submit your final draft, because you may end up changing something. And these can be found in the questions tab in Ion Wave. You'll see it like a forum, like a discussion forum, once more questions are uploaded there. Next slide, please. See, I told you, lots of steps, it's okay. Finish drafting your proposal. Have someone edit and proofread it. And by someone, we're gonna talk a little bit about generative AI when we get to the writing portion. We are living in a new world, but we're gonna talk about how to use generative AI in this process and how not to. But hey, if you don't have anybody else to fix your grammar, to proofread, to fix any little errors, it is fantastic for that. But you do want to submit a polished document. It doesn't have to be, the best English that anybody ever read, but it does need to be professional and polished and free of errors. And we have so many tools now that will do that for you in 5 seconds. And then 11. Oh, no, let me go back to 10. This is the human element, okay? If you have a friend who doesn't know what you do, it's a really good idea. You may offer to take this friend out for dinner or drinks, because this is a pretty big favor. Ask someone who doesn't know what you do to read your draft with this simple question. Does this make sense to you? Do you understand what my company does? Does it seem like my company understands the project? And would you choose this company or this person for this project based on what was written here? That is going to be the most powerful tool for getting around your own author bias and finding out if something you wrote is not necessarily clear. Because the things that we have in our head, the only way to know if it makes sense to an external audience is to ask an external audience. So start thinking about that friend or family member right now. Does somebody owe you a favor? Call them. Tell them you're gonna up-level your business in 2024 and 2025, and you're gonna need their help. That's another thing that the AI can't really do, right? We are humans connecting with humans. Give it to another human as a final step before polishing your final draft and get some feedback. And like I said, it really is helpful if it's somebody who doesn't know much, maybe socially, they don't really know exactly what you do, because then they'll tell you, like, the procurement team doesn't know what you do, right? They can make some assumptions. You work in construction. You're bidding on a construction project. But you'll know exactly what gaps you may have in expressing your value with that process. Then you're gonna, oh wait, back one more, sorry. You're gonna make any final changes, you're gonna submit it through Ion Wave, and then you're gonna wait. That's the hard part. Can usually take a few months, right? How will they know if they have been selected, or if someone's going to ask them questions when they're in the waiting period?
Thank you. So after the RFP closes, there is an evaluation period where the evaluation committee members do take time to review all requirements and all submitted proposals. And during that time, you can be asked for evaluation interviews or any clarifying questions. And usually that is done through procurement. We will reach out to you via email. Ask you for any questions or if you have been selected for an interview. And then after the evaluation period, we will then send an intent to award notice to the selected proposer. And then from there, we will go through the official awarding process.
Thank you. This is a good time for questions before we go on to the next section. Any questions so far? Anybody on Teams? All right, next slide, please. All right, we are going to do some writing. For those of you at home, please check your email and your attachments. Oh wait, no, we're gonna back up one time, excuse me. But you do need, for those of you in the room, you need this example of an RFP, the smaller packet. And for those of you on Teams, this is an attachment in your email. I just wanted to give you a tip on how to skip right to the description of a project. Because the first thing you will want to do is figure out, do I even want to try for this project, right? So the main thing you need to know is that the first several pages of any RFP and the first entire section is the standard legal stuff. I'm not saying don't read it. You definitely have to read it. But you don't have to read it first if you're just trying to get the information about what is this project, what is needed, am I possibly a good fit for it? So for those of you in the room, what you have in your hand is the beginning of the typical beginning of the second section of an RFP. So I just want to give everybody 2 minutes to read the first page, whether you're joining us via Teams or in the room, just to get a feel for, how do I find it? What does it look like? So just take 2 minutes to read on your own, please.
Sure.
And if you could go to the bottom of the second page, that's the main part I want you to see through there. You don't have to skip to it, but I do want you to see what's happening at the bottom of the second page. So in these 2 pages of the second section, what do you see? You're already in the second sections. We only printed, because again, it's like 14 pages, so we only printed the second section for you. We jumped right to the second section, so. But when you're looking at this online, you will, once you download the PDF, you're gonna scroll through, again, this, I'm not saying don't read the legal stuff, okay? But this is to find out whether or not this is for you. You're gonna scroll through several pages of things that are labeled 1, 1.2, 1.3, and then section 2, usually labeled special conditions, is where you start to read the actual description of the project. So what do you see in the first 2 pages of section 2 here? What information are we looking at? Budget. Timelines. Rough scope of work. A lot of that is also hashed out in the question period. Excellent. So the point of this is just to show you how to quickly jump in any RFP to the meat of the project before, so that you can make a decision of whether or not this is something that your company should go for or if it fits your area of expertise. The timeline is extremely helpful, right? Maybe it's a great opportunity, but you're in the middle of another project right now and it's just not going to be possible to pull together the team that you need according to the timeline that's in the RFP, right? So this is to save you time. And then, when it's time to start drafting, that's when you go back to section 1 and you read all the legal stuff. But it's kind of, backwards is not the word. It's, the legal stuff is pretty standard. This is the individualized information for each project in section 2, okay? Any questions about that before we get into the writing? All right. So, for those of you joining us virtually, if you could please, we're going to put some of this stuff up on the slides, but if you could open up your Solicitation 101 packet, and for those of you in the room, if you could grab this right now. We are also, we're going to do some drafting by hand in just a moment. We're going to do some exercises together looking at sample responses to RFPs, but within this packet is a very detailed template and checklist to get you started, okay? I believe, it's not just my belief, brain research shows that thought processes flow better when we are writing by hand. I am a big believer in doing the brainstorming stage by hand. There's just something different, regardless of your age, and I know I might be dating myself, of taking a piece of paper and a pen and sketching out your initial ideas by hand instead of going directly to the computer, okay? So we're gonna practice that as a best practice today. You will want to either move to a table or have a clipboard, just something to bear down on. You know, I won't make you get up and move if you're comfortable. So it's important to be comfortable when you're writing as well, right? Like, set your conditions. And Gerard can bring you a clipboard if you need something to write on. Okay. So for those of you on Teams, if you are having trouble finding this Solicitation 101 packet, it came in an email yesterday, and if you still can't find it, drop a note to Gerard in the chat and he will email it to you again, okay? Surprise, I should have put the word interactive in the title. So here's our interactive part. If there's no questions, we can move on. All right, here's your big template I want you to always have in your mind. So you need to show that you understand the client's needs. In this case, the client is the city of Frederick. You need to present a compelling solution to the problem or the project. And you need to demonstrate your company or organization's credibility and expertise. Details are always better than generalities here. It's very easy to say, we're award-winning, we've done all these other projects, we have a great team, right? But show us the receipts, right? Because anybody can say anything. Now, sometimes you're gonna be bidding on something that maybe you haven't had that experience and this is a growth for you, right? So obviously we're never gonna lie, but you're gonna lean into your strengths and you're going to show that you have understood the project and really thought through how you will handle all the pieces of it and deliver successfully if you have not done it before. Next slide, please. So what we're gonna do today, but first we're gonna do some exercises before what we want you to leave with is what we're calling an RFP elevator pitch. Does anybody know what an elevator pitch is? Do you wanna say? Exactly. If you're stuck in an elevator with somebody who might have an opportunity for you or you want them to know about you, you're able to express in 30 seconds or in the time it takes to ride the elevator exactly who you are or what your company is, what you do, how you serve in a way that's memorable so the next time that person goes, oh, I need a person for this thing, your name comes to mind. So we're gonna take that same concept and put it into what could serve as the beginning of your bid proposal, okay? You don't need to be a masterful writer. Again, we all have our areas of expertise, and most of them are not writing if we're bidding on city contracts, right? They could be sewage, managing the pool, right? Graphic design. So nobody is expecting you to be a masterful writer, but you do need to know your value, and you need to know your differentiation, and you need to know how to talk about it. If you've worked with a marketing company or you've taken any marketing courses, you've probably already done a lot of that work. And you can go back and lean on that work and recycle some of those statements, that you came up with about your company or your service. And if you haven't done it, we're gonna work on that today, okay? A really easy thing, if you've actually never really thought about this, we had somebody in the last one in the fall who said, well, I just do IT, it's all the same. It's just IT services, everybody does the same thing. And I said, no, everybody has a differentiation. And I've worked with different, tech providers in my own small business and have definitely felt the difference between the person who gets back to you and communicates and tells you what's happening and what's gonna happen next, and the person who just disappears for 2 months and then says, here's your website draft. So it's things that we do well, we often can't see it because they are our natural skill sets. And I work with a lot of people in a lot of different industries, and almost all of them, until they've told me a story about how they work or something that their company does, they haven't realized that this thing they do brings incredible value to the client because it's just a natural thing that they do. Why wouldn't you get back to somebody if they have a question? Well, a lot of people don't do that, right? Why wouldn't you pick up your phone if the client has an answer, has a question? A lot of people don't do that. Why wouldn't you just explain in as clear terms as possible the next phase of the project for the client? A lot of people don't do that. So a good exercise is to ask a friend or family member who knows you, what's my superpower? What is my superpower? If you've never really thought about this before, because you're probably applying that superpower in your business. Or if you have client testimonials, that's an excellent place to start, even if they're not published. For this RFP process, again, this is about up-leveling. If you have not yet collected testimonials from previous clients, this is a great opportunity to do it. You might not even be publishing it anywhere, but it's going to give you the language of people who have already worked with you in their own words about why that was a positive experience, why that was a success. So you don't have to think it all up here. Ask the people who know you and ask the people who've worked with you. And you can take that language as a starting place. All right, so we're going to look at this checklist together. I would like you in, I need my reading glasses. Who am I kidding? I need my reading glasses at all times now. Okay. You have on page 1 your table of contents. Again, this is designed for you to take it home and work through it more on your own time. And then your first section is the glossary. As you're going back through and you're reading some of these RFPs, if you need to check the terms or clarify, it's all here. And then, oh, I'm sorry, I realized we didn't label these with page numbers. I apologize. If you have the double-sided, this is going to be page 3. Actually, if you could just skip to the page that says, what is an RFP? This gives you a quick overview of all of the pieces that are involved in the process. And then if you could turn the page to the one that says examining the City of Frederick RFPs and project requirements. Each city government has their own kind of order and template for this. Sorry, now I don't need my reading glasses. All right, it's just transitions and aging. Got to get used to it. There's not necessarily a standard outline or format for each RFP in the City of Frederick. So in some cases, you just need to use your judgment. All the pieces will be clear, the pieces that you have to include. So this is here if you need guidelines for the different buckets and sections of what you're going to include.
Thank you. I did just want to mention each RFP that we do put out, we do include a section, usually right after the scope of work section, and it's labeled proposal requirements, and that will include like a rundown of what sections to include in your proposal. And like Julie said, not each one is standardized. Certain RFPs may require certain requirements to include in your proposals, but we will include that section in our RFPs.
So your ability to pay attention to detail is key here, but you'll get it. So the next section, and again, I'm not going to read this to you. This is just a quick overview for how to use this when you get home. And then we're going to do some exercises together. I would like you, after you get home, to read the page about writing a winning proposal. And then, if you could skip to drafting a narrative about your company and experience, the elevator pitch section, please. So this part we are going to go over together quickly. And then we're going to look at some samples and analyze some samples and say, you know, did this company do these things? How does this feel? Would I hire? Would I select this contractor? So you want to start by crafting a concise yet engaging opening sentence that captures your audience's attention and introduces your company. Again, you don't have to start with this. Writing is not a linear process. The hook in the beginning is not necessarily going to be the thing that wins you the bid or not, right? Again, you don't have to be the world's greatest writer, but once you've written all the meat of the draft, then it'll kind of become clearer how to go back and start the introduction if you're having trouble. You know, you don't need to think of the most brilliant opening line before you get started. But it is nice to be compelling from the very first paragraph, right? You don't want the reader to read this dry language that goes on and on and on, and it's halfway down the page before the proposal reader finally understands what it is you do and whether or not you understand the project. So right out of the gate, concise, to the point is always better. You want to focus on using strong active verbs and descriptive adjectives. There are lots of, if English is not your first language, there are lots of websites where you can search for synonyms. There's even a list of action verbs that are used for resumes. Those are very, very helpful for this process as well. And you want to highlight your company's unique selling points and the impact you've made on your industry. This is your story, right? You're not going to lie if you don't have experience in some areas, but you can always emphasize the great stuff you've done. You're going to use storytelling techniques. And again, you don't have to be a novelist. We're just talking about clear beginning, middle, and end, and this is where that good friend comes in, who's going to read your draft and say, yes, this makes sense. Yes, I can follow it. Yes, I understand who you are and what you're going to do with this project. And you also want to talk about and highlight any experience and achievements. So again, start collecting those if you haven't yet. That's also a good first step for this RFP process. Do a huge brain dump of everything you've ever done for your business, whether or not it was externally acknowledged. You know your wins. Write down a list of your wins. If you have quantifiable data, you're going to include that, right? So increased this by this percentage. Not everybody's going to have that, depending upon the service or the type of business, and that's okay. But if you have it, include it. And then emphasize your company's core values and culture, which sets you apart from the competition. You might be thinking, well, I'm a solopreneur. I know my values. I don't have a team that I need to convey the values to. It's all me, right? Or my team knows our values. This is a great exercise if you haven't yet done it. Because it will serve you in marketing. It will serve you in this process. Really sit down and think about what are the company's values, because you can emphasize that in the RFP if you get a sense that the values are aligned. And then finally, close your narrative with a powerful call to action that invites potential clients or partners to connect and explore further opportunities with your company. Now, everybody knows that you are responding to a process, right? It's not like a networking event where you say, I am always interested in connecting with so-and-so for such and such, but it just makes for a better read. It makes for a better read to land on, we are excited to partner with the city of Frederick in order to complete this project so that the people in the city can have this benefit. Just something like that so that you don't end flat. We're trying to avoid flat and dry, because try to imagine for a moment, and I'm sure maybe you've been in this position, how many proposals and how many pages the procurement team has to read. Make it easy to follow and make it interesting when you can. The next page is, again, something for you to take home and spend more time with, the one with these blue lines. That's just a breakdown of a format that you can follow for drafting your first RFP. And now, this is the gold. Under practical activity 1, I'll wait for everybody to get there. We have a checklist. And you can use this checklist to start your own draft. I'll just give everybody 3 minutes to read over the checklist, because next we're going to look at some examples and analyze whether or not they have followed the checklist. And for those of you joining on Teams, I apologize that we didn't put page numbers, but this is the page labeled Practical Activity 1, Examining Samples. can go ahead and change to the next slide. And the next one. If you have read that, what we're going to do now is I'd like everybody to take 2 minutes to read this first sample of Build Comp. It's a cluttered slide, so if you're joining us from Teams, I recommend opening up the packet and reading it on the PDF. And as you're reading, keep in your mind these questions. Do I understand what this company does? Does this company seem to understand the project? And would I hire this company for my project? How does this sample feel to you when you read it? Yeah. Yeah. Does it feel competent? Does it feel confident? Yeah. Yeah, there's specific examples, right? And the overview fits on one page. Obviously, we're going to get into the details in the rest of the proposal, but you can read the first page and understand before moving on, hey, this might be a contender. Let's read the next one. For those of you on Teams, the title of this page is Sample 2, a company narrative in response to an RFP. How does this one feel when you read it? Hilarious. In what way? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No real details, right? In contrast with itself, but lots of fancy language, right? Like a high level of vocabulary that says not much. My colleague put this together, and she used AI to generate it. Also, as an example of what happens if you don't have your details straight, if you don't have your draft straight, and everything already within you before you go to the AI. This is a pretty typical example. I think she probably gave it some vague details. Respond to a proposal that is asking this, be this type of company, some kind of communication technology project, and this is the result. It's also the result, even if you don't use AI and you haven't thought deeply about your examples, your differentiation, your past projects, and your values. So I used to sit on a committee for a esteemed scholarship program, and we got a lot of things like this. It would be like really great sounding English on the surface, and then you read between the lines and there's nothing there. So, all right. So, if you go to the last page, for those of you on Teams, this is practical activity 2, drafting your company narrative. We are going to use the remaining time up until like 11:28 to get started. And I'm going to walk around. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from those of you on Teams and those of you in the room, what's your company? What do you do? If you're kind of stuck on how do I convey that? But please use the remaining time to use this template to get started on a compelling draft. And I'm very, very happy to answer questions or give feedback or help you with that. And you can write on the back of the packet. I know we didn't give you blank paper. Or write on the back of this example. In this case, you're going to have to imagine the project that you're bidding on based on your company, your area of expertise, and write to that. And if you're totally stuck with how to get started, there's a pretty common template for explaining your differentiation, and you can just start with filling in the blanks if that gets things flowing. And that's, your name, your company name is a what type of company, what type of service that helps who? Local governments, in this case. With what? So that. So that is the powerful word here. Why are we doing this? We're doing this so that we can have healthy eco buildings in our community. We're doing this so that the people of the city of Frederick can have parks. We're doing this so that we can have a healthy and safe community. What's your part in that that's contributing to the transformation or the public good? Even if you only get really through number 1, the introduction part, that's great, because that's the part you're going to recycle for any project you bid on. And there was a comment, which is true, that it's hard to write to something imaginary. The last time we did this, it was a different cycle in the season, and there were more RFPs in the portal that we could actually look at, and the construction companies in particular had some templates they could work off of. But even thinking through this, I think, is going to help you when the time comes. Is there anybody who would like to share? Just really briefly. Who are you? What's your company? What do you do? How do you serve? Why are you the best? You don't have to, but I would actually love to hear some of these mini pitches if you're willing. And if you're on Teams, if you're willing to put that in the chat, that would be fantastic. Or that's more efficient. That would be great. Can I give you the mic?
I would introduce myself, but I think that's the idea of this. So, going in cold. Harris Makers is more than a video production company. We're a creative partner that helps brands and organizations tell their story through digital video. From juggernauts like the Smithsonian's to small local businesses like Adventure Park USA, we've crafted content and campaigns that boost our clients' marketing to the next level. We realize the importance of a visually striking and compelling tourism marketing campaign for the city of Frederick. Our experience capturing organic interviews and stunning images of the city will allow us to make that content go beyond other video products and become something cinematic that viewers will want to watch and share again and again. Our director of photography, Brian Monday, and head of post-production, Cameron Harris, will work with your team to plan and execute our shared creative vision, offering our combined decades of experience in the media industry.
Have you done this before? Not at this scale, but I have written a few proposals. Okay, yeah. So that was excellent. Also, yeah, exactly. Sold, done. Videography, done. Check it off the list. But listen, if you can't crank that level out of your head the first time, don't worry, right? It's a process. That was amazing, though. But it speaks to, you said you have done elements of that before, right? Like talking about the company. Right, not in the government context, but right. And that's where if you have worked with a marketing team, or if you've taken the marketing courses, or if you've worked on the content of your website, you've done this work. And this is the place to recycle it. So that was a really great example of how automatically that came out because you've done this work, right? Just switch the context a little bit. So would anyone like to follow that? Yeah. If I were a competitive videographer in this room, I'd be walking out the door. Just be like, forget it. Any questions? You know, the idea here is hopefully to get you on your way and have the pieces needed. But questions about the template, the checklist, the writing process, talking to the procurement team, switching context. You know, maybe you've never done the government contracting before, but you've had to sell your services to other clients. All right, I hope that's because we were clear. I hope there are no questions because we were clear. That's my job, to be clear. But once again, you have resources. You have IonWave to check your opportunities. You have this resource guide in Spanish and English, and it's available online as well as a download. And you have this Office of Equity and Inclusion. One of my services, I just want to clarify that it's not free because I'm a small business owner too. If you do end up with an opportunity and you want some writing assistance, that's one of the things that my company does. I'll leave it at that. So, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Teams people.
Guys, how about a round of applause for Julie? I do want to thank her for coming out to offer this content. I know it's heavy. I know it's a lot to chew through, so I appreciate you guys sticking with us and being here today. What we're trying to do is offer content to help make sure that as we're bringing you on board to start to partner and do business with the city of Frederick, that you have the resources necessary to do that. Government contracting can be tricky, can be a cumbersome process. But we're trying to break down those barriers of entry, right? We're trying to make this a little bit more of a transparent process. So the initial registration process of how to get set up on IonWave, we're trying to make that as easy as possible for you. Step 2, identifying the RFPs and how to actually submit that proposal. That's what we're covering here today. And then also don't forget that we are offering a vendor resource fair. So we're gonna have banks that offer diverse and business-focused lending programs. We're going to have state agencies like our Office of Small Minority and Women-Owned Business, some certification agencies, some other state agencies. We're going to have some insurance providers and a few other vendors in every category that will be able to help you and further you along on this journey. So make sure May 23rd that you put that on the calendar. It's going to be right here at New Spire Arts at 9 a.m. It is free. There's no cost to anybody to show up. The registration link is, there's a QR code over there on the table, and for those of you in Teams, I did put that registration link in the chat. It's helpful for you to RSVP so we know who to expect, but you're not required to RSVP. So come on over May 23rd at New Spire Arts and check out all of the amazing resources we have. The last thing that I want to say is if you have questions and you don't know where to start with me. My card is right over there on the table. Raven is in our procurement purchasing office. She is our resident expert on all things RFP. That's all she does pretty much all day, am I right? Is deal with RFPs, right? And so if you have a question that something we didn't cover here today, I can put you in touch with either Julie to go over some of the stuff that we went through today, or Raven at a moment's notice to talk specific details about specific city RFPs, right? Or any questions that you might have on any of this process. If I don't know the answer, I can connect you with the appropriate person at the city who does know that answer. So if you don't know where to start, don't feel like you have to comb the city staff directory. Start with me. Ask me the question, and if I don't know, I'll put you in touch with the right person. So again, thank you all for being here with us today. And thank you, Julie. Thank you, Raven, for being here. And thank you to everyone that joined us on Teams. So I'm going to follow up following this with an email that will give you a link to a survey that we would love to have your feedback on how we did today. And then also all the program materials will be in there as well, so you can review those and go from there. All right? All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. Have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll see you soon.